Okay. So as I mentioned, the foundation for all of our practices is relaxation. Because particularly for us in the modern world, we tend to come into meditation with quite an agitated, chaotic state of mind. And our sort of strong habit in daily life is that whenever we want to focus on anything, we sort of tense. And we tend to bring that into meditation. And then often when we're trying to focus on something like the breath, with that tension, we very easily get distracted, and then we often feel like the reason we got distracted is we weren't tight enough on the object. So we come back and we clamp down harder. And so we end up just getting very agitated and exhausted in meditation. So this is not really a sustainable method of focus. So particularly in the first few days of this retreat is just really emphasising relaxation. Don't worry too much about the other qualities. If you notice you have any tension, agitation in the body or the mind, then just really release that on every out-breath. Release, release, release. And one approach to the breath practice that's helpful for that is what we did yesterday, just noticing sensations in the breath anywhere in the body. But what I'd like to introduce now is a sort of a variation of that, which is also very good for relaxation, but also it's going to be very good to use as an anchor for the practices that we're going to do later, the observing the mind and resting in awareness. And that is the practice of focusing on the rhythm of the breath. So when we say rhythm of the breath, we're simply noticing if our breathing is going fast or slow, deep or shallow, long or short. Of course, without trying to control it in any way. And here's the challenge, is that generally in our modern world in particular again, is that we like to control things. And the breath is something that we have some sort of control over. So if you notice that you're trying to control your breath, if you notice you're trying to do something with your breath, if you're trying to make it more shallow or more subtle, then just release that. Release, 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 release. So again, just in this practice, just noticing the rhythm of the breath. Again, if it's going fast or slow, deep or shallow, long or short, without trying to modify it in any way. And really on every out-breath, just releasing any tension, releasing any thoughts. And so just working with that relaxation. Okay, so let's do that practice, 20-minute session. So of course we begin by preparing the body. So setting the body into a state of relaxation, stillness and vigilance. So remember, a vigilant posture is to simply keep the back nice and straight. And then at the same time, allow the entire body to become completely relaxed, completely at ease. And using the out-breath to relax and release any tightness or tension in any part of the body. And if you find it helpful, you can take 3 slow, deep breaths, maintaining awareness of sensations throughout the body as you breathe. And then allow the breathing to settle into its natural rhythm. Not trying to control or regulate the breath in any way. Simply allowing it to flow naturally and effortlessly. And then preparing the mind, setting it into a state of ease and relaxation. So letting go of any thoughts of the past or the future, and simply allowing the mind to come to rest in the present moment. And simply become aware of the rhythm of your breath. Noticing if it's slow or fast, deep or shallow, long or short. Without trying to modify it in any way. So simply noticing the rhythm of the breath. and maintaining that ongoing flow of mindfulness of the rhythm of the breath. And emphasizing that relaxation in this practice. So on each out-breath, releasing any tension in the body and releasing any thoughts in the mind. Keep relaxing and releasing, whilst maintaining that mindfulness of the rhythm of the breath. And if you find that you've become distracted from the breath, remember the first thing to do is simply relax. Then release the distraction and very gently return to focusing on the rhythm of the breath. So relax, release and return. Simply keep coming back to the breath again and again, patiently and happily. Maintaining that ongoing flow of mindfulness, of the rhythm of the breath. And noticing if the rhythm of the breath is changing over time or not. So we can bring the meditation to a close. Maybe we can turn some of the lights off at the back. It's maybe a bit bright, just on the wall there. I think one of them we can switch off. Yeah, or the other one. Is that enough? Is that good? Good. Better. Yeah, otherwise it's a bit bright, particularly if we're meditating with the eyes open. But I think we need some light for the board, but I think we can leave it like that. So let's start with a little review of some of the points that we covered yesterday evening before we move on to the next practice. So this is a Shamatha retreat. And remember, this word Shamatha is a Sanskrit word. When Buddhism first spread from India, it spread through two languages, Sanskrit and Pali. And here in this retreat we're referring back to the Sanskrit texts. And this word shamatha can be divided into two. So remember, shama means calm, a mind that's calm, not with a lot of thoughts. And ta means to remain or abide. So often shamatha is translated as into English as something like calm abiding, meaning a mind that is not only calm, but it's abiding, i.e. focused single-pointedly on an object. So we're talking here about a calm, clear and focused mind. So this shamatha practice, which is the main focus of this retreat, is in Buddhism what's called the concentration practice. And in Buddhism, concentration, the word concentration is coming from the Sanskrit word samadhi. So of course there are many levels of concentration we can develop and cultivate, many levels of samadhi, but the one we're particularly focusing on in this retreat is a level of concentration called shamatha. And so often this concentration practice is called shamatha practice. Those of you who have a little bit of exposure to the Theravada Buddhist traditions, maybe some of you done Goenka Vipassana retreat and other retreats coming from the Theravada tradition, which is based on the Pali texts. In those Buddhist traditions, when they talk about concentration practice, you won't really see this word shamatha. Rather, they use the word jhana. So often in those Buddhist traditions, when they talk about concentration practice, they're simply saying we're doing jhana practice. Whereas in the Buddhist traditions, such as Tibetan Buddhism, based on Sanskrit, when they talk about concentration practice, they use the word shamatha. Same practice. These are just different levels of concentration. So whether we say jhana practice or shamatha practice, same practice. So here in the Sanskrit tradition, we'll use the word shamatha. And how to train in this practice, we're going through a number of things in this retreat. First point was this preconditions, meaning how to set up our life in such a way to support this practice, the sort of developing a good framework for this practice. So we're going to be looking at this much later in this retreat, what these look like. And in the actual practice of shamatha, we said that in all practices there are two parts, meditation and daily life. Meditation to internalize and daily life to integrate into daily life. Daily life we're also going to be looking at, particularly on the last day of this retreat, how to integrate a lot of these practices into our daily life. And then in meditation has two parts, preparation and actual. And we saw there that it's important at the beginning of any meditation session to really prepare ourselves well for the meditation. then it's going to go a lot better. So in the preparation we saw, we can talk about preparing body, speech and mind. And so the body was, of course, the posture. So we went through a number of elements there yesterday evening in setting up a good posture. But again, to keep it simple, two things important with posture: back straight and body relaxed. Another thing we mentioned a little bit was about the eyes, which I'll talk more about in a few days' time. But in general, for meditation, it's recommended to have them at least slightly open. Because if we have them closed, usually with eyes closed, that's sort of a signal to go to sleep, so we get very drowsy. But here, as a beginner, I think we can be a bit flexible depending on the type of person we are. If we're the sort of person that naturally tends to be more drowsy than agitated, I wouldn't recommend meditating with your eyes closed. You're just going to get very drowsy. Whereas if you're the sort of person who more tends to get agitated than drowsy, you may find having the eyes open, you get more agitated. Then you can close them. So that's something we can adjust depending on what type of person we are. But certainly when we go into these practices of observing the mind,